Good morning, all. Welcome to Texas Southern University Speaker Series, and this one entitled Building Opportunities for Business in Africa, Part 1. My name is Kendall Harris, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Provost and Chief Academic Officer here at the university. On behalf of our interim president, Mr. Kenneth Hewitt, we would like to welcome all of our listeners to this speaker series. This gives the university the opportunity to broaden its horizons to go beyond the scope of its own four walls, in the sense that we're talking today about opportunities that would exist for all that will be able to build relationships and collaborations. We have a great host of panels for you, moderated by two of our own here at TSU, and they will do a great job with putting this together. To our panelists, once again, thank you for joining us and bringing us your insight on this speaker series. To the audience, please take the time, enjoy, ask us questions. There's a chat box on the right-hand side. I know the moderator will tell you more about that, but it's a chat box on the right-hand side that will give you the opportunity to talk and ask questions to be a part of this speaker series. So, everyone, we have a full day for you today. And so I'm not going to be the one that stand in the way of getting this information to you, but I would like to close by saying thank you again to our panelists for participating, but also thinking about this idea, about the opportunities of expanding and having collaborations with the continent of Africa. Guys, we're going to have a great time in this speaker series today. Enjoy, and I'm here if you need me. To our moderator, there you go.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Connie Cochran, and I am Assistant Vice President of Alumni Relations and Special Events here at Texas Southern University, and I am a proud alum of TSU as well. On behalf of our more than 80,000 alumni in all 50 states and internationally, including Africa, I welcome you to this conversation series webinar with TSU experts and others, celebrating the life and legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. as we kick off Black History Month. Enjoy this informative and interesting discussion on building opportunities for business in Africa. As always, go Tigers.
Hi, everyone. Good morning to all. Happy New Year. My name is Joseph Johnson, and I have both the honor and the pleasure of serving as the student regent here at Texas Southern University. On behalf of our student body, I'd like to welcome you all to today's event, Building Opportunities for Businesses in Africa. Special thanks to the Office of the Provost and our faculty for continuing to host great events such as this one amidst the pandemic. I know for professors, Dr. Rodriguez, Dean Bledsoe and Dean Key, this is something that is very close to them, being that our HBCU doesn't serve just Black Americans, but Black folks throughout the globe. So without further ado, I'd like to thank our panelists, and hopefully this will be not only the initial conversation that we have about Africa, but as well as continuing as we extend, like our provost said, our walls, extend past our walls, extend past our walls at the university. Thank you.
Good morning, assembled panelists, moderators, and to our visual listening audience. My name is Cynthia Williams, and I'm part of the organizing committee member for Texas Southern University Conversation Series. Thank you for extending yourselves to be a part of this exciting event. I have the distinct pleasure of giving a brief overview of this event. Texas Southern University is engaged in a process of developing even with African continent and throughout the African diaspora. Besides participating in the United Nations-driven initiatives to improve relations between African and Caribbean nations with historical Black colleges and universities and predominantly Black serving institutions. It is participating in a distant learning initiative to work more closely with African American universities and African university students. So in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King and in recognition of Black History Month, the university has a three-part series, starting with this event today. We will discuss business opportunities with Africa. We believe it will be an enlightening conference because it will highlight business successes of different sizes and show others who have such successes while bringing internationally renowned experts to talk about the hows and the whatnots. It is our hope that this event will be beneficial and spark additional conversation and, more importantly, action here and abroad. And now, I would like to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Gregory Maddox, for the first of the two panel discussions. Thank you. Go Tigers.
Thank you very much, Ms. Williams, and thank you, Provost Harris, and for the organizing committee for putting this event together. It's the first part of our three-part seminar series on connections with Africa. I'm Gregory Maddox. I'm Dean of the Graduate School and Director of International Programs here at Texas Southern University. This event represents one more step in a long-term engagement between Texas Southern and Africa. Dating back to the days of John Biggers, the founder of our Department of Fine Arts, who famously traveled in Africa and helped create a new genre of painting based on that. TSU has long engaged with Africans, with African institutions, with African nations in the pursuit of mutual collaboration and cooperation. For the past 20 years, we've had a close relationship with the University of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania and taken hundreds of students from Texas Southern to Dar es Salaam, as well as with numerous other institutions in South Africa, Ghana, and elsewhere in the continent. We're real excited today to have an opportunity to bring together four people who have extensive experience promoting business connections between Africa and America. I will introduce each of the speakers right before they begin. They are Dr. Lennard Tenede, Mr. Edward Wycliff, Ms. Shannette Prince, and Professor Emeka Doripo of our own Thurgood Marshall School of Law. Dr. Tenede is a longtime friend of TSU, among other things, but he is also someone who has been deeply connected in promoting business links between Africa and the United States. He began his career as a civil engineer in Tanzania and joined the college, what is now the College of Engineering at the University of Dar es Salaam, where briefly we were colleagues on the faculty of the university. He later went on to earn a master's degree in engineering and then a doctorate in engineering from the University of Texas. After that, he worked for many years for Brown and Root, Halliburton, and KBR. Working in international projects that span the globe. Since his retirement from that position, he's been a sought-after consultant on doing business in Africa. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Tenede and let him tell us a little bit about trying to promote connections between American and African business.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maddox. I appreciate your wonderful introduction. I must say that since I came to Houston, that very first month, I became connected with Texas Southern University in various ways and capacities. And up to now, I feel so tied to that university as though I'm an alumnus from there. I'm not, but I'm proud of the university for the contribution it has made to the people in Houston and all of Africa, and especially my country, Tanzania. And thank you so much for inviting me to be one of the presenters in this wonderful event. I'm not going to introduce myself any further, but I'm going to indicate the basis under which I've gained the experience that has taken me back to wanting to do business in Africa and the efforts I've done on that end. My engineering experience here in America has been wonderful because it has taken me all over the world. I've met all types of cultures, very knowledgeable and experienced engineers and others, very challenging projects here in the country and overseas. All these things opened me up into recognizing what areas that I can apply when time of retirement comes or close to it, that I can apply for the benefit of both the United States, where all of my experience I have garnered here, except a short stint in Tanzania, and countries in Africa, where I understand the various types of needs for which I can bring to the table and connect Tanzania or East Africa, in my case mostly, and United States for mutual benefit. By that, I mean being underdeveloped or developing. It essentially means there are a lot of areas that require growth. You need to build the middle class, which is the class that buys things. In other words, you need to build a market. And at the same time, there are technologies here, there are finances and funding from here that are looking for appropriate investments that bring value to them here. And in so doing, they are also solving a major problem issue in the country, and it spurs development growth. This has been the driver, and I've continued to use my engineering knowledge in infrastructure projects, ranging from power transmission, power generation, performing advisory services to governments and private entities in areas of transportation and logistics. So all these things sometimes allow me to discover an opportunity that I can connect supply from America and demand from out there, and most of the demand being infrastructural or investment or industries or something like that, and the supply on this side being the industries that are grown here that may want to extend over there, or simply putting up a major project such as building a pipeline, an oil pipeline from a landlocked country to the ocean. Pipeline per se sounds like a very easy stuff, but the nature of the product is that it requires high level and very current technologies to make it happen. Okay, so based on that, I have had good experiences in developing, on one hand, establishing a project that has a good potential for being viable in the country, in East Africa in this case. And I've also seen lots of areas in meetings here in Houston whereby I get invited to meetings. How do we get to Africa? Why is it so difficult to invest there? How can I do it? And most of the time, I'm keen to help, but I have to ask them to go through an education process, self-education, whereby you need to untangle certain issues that are historical and give an impression that doing business in Africa is almost impossible, or rather is the worst place to do business. There is too many risks and probably there is no profit and things like that. But that is really not the case. Let me mention just a few things that the UNDP United Nations Development Program. They do a lot of research in collaboration with the companies that that do research. And in truth, they have determined that those who venture into Africa end up making a lot of profit because there is less competition, there is market capture usually, and once you get a name recognition there, you begin dominating the market. So according to the UN, today and going forward, Africa is likely going to be the most profitable region to do business. So we better grab this opportunity and gain something from there. Economic growth in Africa has the best prospects among most of the world today because of the expanding market and because of the being a country with resources that are pretty scarce elsewhere. We can talk about this later if somebody asks a question. The population in Africa is growing pretty rapidly, but it is a very youthful population. The average age is under 20, and between 18 and 30, that is almost 2/3 of the population of a country. And therefore, that means it has a very strong working group that is up and rising, and it's a group that is very teachable. And typically, if you train them properly, probably the production cost is also lower than one might think. So the biggest portion that I find as a plus for investment in Africa is that since its infrastructure, physical or non-physical infrastructure, is less developed, it is one continent that is ready at any time to leapfrog, jumping from nothing to the latest technologies. And actually, they work better that way. And that is one reason why the cell phone and the smartphone has entered into Africa at a much faster rate than even in this country. Everybody in the village will always have a cell phone. They can deal with banks through text messages easier than most people here because we are comfortable with the way we deal with things, and therefore changing it to a new technology is harder. And therefore, for growing into the latest trends, environmental, it's easier to push renewable energy in Africa than it is here, because renewable energy, energy in general, like power, is very scarce out there. So any new thinking about building a power plant should start with renewable energy. So the people that have gone to Africa with to initiate projects, we come back and have done that either with the Fortune 500 companies initiating a specific project and asking me to lead into that because of my knowledge, my cultural knowledge of the country and awareness of the laws and regulations and policies, and also ability to connect the group with the environment out there. I find that those who are willing to get into the country know it without biases of Africa is not good for business. They pick it up, they identify requirements, they identify needs, and they also are able to perform a study that not only utilizes the standard metrics for viability of a project in terms of return on investment, even the risk factors are looked upon somewhat differently, because sometimes a risk factor, a known risk factor, could be an opportunity to you after you mitigate it, because then other people or other companies might stick onto that risk as a hindrance for going out there. Among the things that I have encountered from here, am I going to get a government guarantee? By that they mean a sovereign guarantee, so that my project is not nationalized, especially the projects that are more than 200 million in say investment requirement. They forget about that. There is no country these days in the world that offers outright sovereign guarantees on any project. You need to do your own due diligence, determine the viability of the project, think through all the risks, and thinking through all the risks means that you perform the correct study and enter into partnership with locals or even the government as a public-private partnership, which if you speak with international organizations that are doing business in Africa, see that as a measure that really takes care of a lot of risks, because now you have the country itself being party to the project. So that is, they have a skin in the game and they want to protect it. So perform the study, enter into some partnership with local entities so that you get buy-in, clearly understand policy, use all the experience you have here, but let it not constrain you from being open-minded a little bit. The profit margins, according to the World Bank, profit margins difference between, on the average, elsewhere in the world and Africa, if the project is done well, is in excess of 9%. In other words, if the profit margin here in the US is 15%, very likely on the average, the profit margin over there will be probably 15 plus 9, 24%. All elements that may conflict with policies or the way we do business here in America, you need to clarify those up front. And there are embassies, there are other non-government organizations that are always ready to help. And more importantly, since all investments involve money, funding, you are strongly advised to have a clear prioritization of institutions that you'd like to bank with on one hand, or to get loans from. If for major infrastructure projects, take the route of development banks or investment banks, because those tend to have, they can even help in the study. They do understand the limitations in the country, in the countries that you are trying to get into. They have a lot of data that can help you. And also, relatively, they give better financing deals than commercial banks that you can get here. Typical example, say a power project. I've done a lot of power projects. That's why I'm using that as an example. Return on investment on power projects is very good in Africa, because power development is really required to invigorate economic growth out there. So a commercial bank, the maximum number of years you need to repay, let's say a $300 million deal, is around 9 to 10 years. Typical development investment banks that are supported by some international agencies may give you up to 20 years. Reason for that is some investments, you you grow into it. There is a lot of upfront cost, initial cost, and therefore getting to a point whereby you comfortably are able to complete the repayment of the loan can be quite a daunting task. It's possible in 9 years, but for best results, they will give you a greater grace period before you start paying. And at the end of the day, they may help even in the negotiations with the home country, whereby you even if it is a PPP, public-private partnership, whereby you can, at the end of the day, you have paid off the debt, you have made your money, and you have grown the population in terms of technology transfer and capacity building. You can even end up with a time, say 20 years down the road, whereby you transfer the entire project to the government for their upkeep perpetually. And by then you have made your money and you're happy to return home if you're coming home, or to invest in another thing if you're going to stay there. So basically, be open-minded, perform your studies, understand the policies and the funding institutions, and in building the partnership, the relationship, the PPP arrangement, make sure, as I said, you don't count on government guarantees, sovereign guarantees. You also try to, the contribution of the government should be for most of the internal stuff, such as land acquisition, compensation, review of policies in a way that they support your project. Make sure that you truly understand the law governing the specific work that you're trying to do. Don't assume that you just have read it, and therefore you get actual experience, get people who have done it, so that you can cross out, you can take care of the things that could be could put you in some issues later. Otherwise, I strongly believe the big market in the near future is going to be Africa, and that's where the wave is going to. So it's best to begin knowing and finding opportunities there now. All types of projects, as a matter of fact, from small investments, medium investments, to very large investments. But large investments is not a priority because those companies, the Fortune 500 companies, they know the world very well, and they know how to deal with Africa. And it is the biggest opportunity is on the small investments and medium investments. I'm available to take any questions that may exist. That was my presentation today.
Thank you, Dr. Tenede. For those of you who are attending, you should see on your screen a chat box, a box over on my screen. It's on the far right side. If you'd like to ask a question of any of the speakers, please enter it in there, and we'll try and get to them at the end of the presentations today. So, like I said, thank you, Dr. Tenede. You have been both a valuable friend to TSU and to myself, and provided us with lots of important and very effective advice as we sought to promote engagement with Africa. Our next speaker is Mr. Edward Wycliff. Edward is the founder and designer of an ethical apparel line called Shoeshoe. It is based on his experience as a Peace Corps volunteer in the Kingdom of Lesotho. He grew up here in Houston in 3rd Ward, as he says, went to Ithaca College and earned a master's degree at the University of Amsterdam in conflict resolution. During his time in Lesotho, he partnered with local craftspeople to develop what was first a line of ties based on using the dominant locally produced cloth, Shoeshoe. I am trying to model one of his ties for him. So, during the pandemic, he has had the foresight to transition production, both in Lesotho and here in the United States, to masks. With that, let me welcome Edward. I'm sure he'll tell you a lot more about his experiences of starting a business in Africa and creating a cooperative and collaborative business model with African craftspeople.
Hey, everybody. My name's Edward. Thank you, Greg, for the great introduction. I am founder of Shoeshoe, and this all came about while I was in the Peace Corps. And so my Peace Corps service, I was placed in an extremely remote community in Lesotho, deep in the Drakensberg Mountains in the eastern portion of the nation. And the village that I lived in was highly underdeveloped and was very small. I spent a year in the Peace Corps really just getting acquainted with my community, learning from the women that were around me, because most of the men were off in South Africa working in the mines and doing other jobs. And so I had a lot of time to do my research, to somewhat like Dr. Tenede said earlier, to do your homework, which is really important before you are engaging in business in another nation. And so I realized that Lesotho had an amazing local fabric, and that there were a lot of idle hands. So after some time getting to know the community, understanding their needs, we decided to try to develop an income-generating activity for a group of grandmothers in the village. And we ran into some challenges, many having to do with a lot of people didn't know what a bow tie was. When I'm trying to explain what we're producing, they're just like, okay, this American has an idea, let's see what he has, and go from there. So my experience started with producing small garments, and we as a community would produce. I would train a group of about 30 to 40, mostly women. We would produce as a community. They would learn to do it as a unit. And then I would purchase everything that they produced and export it to the United States. And then I would come here to New Orleans, where I live, and I would sell them in art markets, festivals, events all over the city. And then I would go from 2016 to right up before the pandemic. I would go back and forth almost every 3 months producing and training in new products and expanding to other communities, primarily communities in more remote regions of Lesotho. Then I would bring back our products or ship them back to New Orleans and repeat that process. And also, to harken back to what Dr. Tenede said, there is so much opportunity with the underdevelopment of African nations. Like, cell phones have changed the entire way that I'm able to do business. I can take my phone right now and text the payments to one of my producing communities, and it will be readily available. So technology has really helped us open up the opportunity. And one thing that's different about my business and my experience doing business in Lesotho has been that I didn't necessarily structure my business in a traditional way. We were somewhat inspired by cooperative models. So at the height of what we were doing, probably back in 2018, we had a system of 7 communities all across Lesotho. Over 154 people were trained to produce our bow ties, neckties, and handkerchiefs in different regions. And now we've scaled back quite a bit due to the pandemic. However, we were using this decentralized model of production, which reduced risk and also reduced input costs and production costs, because we were able to utilize existing structures. So we do not work out of warehouses. We do not work out of sewing facilities. We work out of community centers and homes. When I come and bring sewing machines to the community, I'm able to train that community to produce the design that I'm looking for, show them the quality standards that we're looking for, and they're able to gather together in a home, in a large home, or in that community center. And that's how we operated for a long time. And basically now, with COVID-19 ravaging the world, I haven't been able to travel back and forth, of course, and also a lot of people in similar positions to me. I wasn't operating a brick and mortar. I was working at a nightly art market here in the streets of New Orleans. But direct-to-consumer sales have been greatly hampered by the inability to actually be face-to-face with your consumer. So you either got to move virtual or find some other opportunity. And so the way we moved into this new reality was, one, going virtual, and two, shifting our production from primarily bow ties and neckties to face masks. And the structure of our business entity has been very, let's say, effective because of that decentralized nature. I was able to develop my product design and share that design with the leaders of my production groups in the different communities that I work with via WhatsApp. I sent them text instructions and video, and they were able to, within about a week, ramp up production to over 2,000 units a week. And so we were quickly able to adapt to the reality. And I think that that's a really important way for, I guess, movers and shakers, young people without a whole lot of capital, to start doing business in African nations. Because like myself, I started my business on my $254 Peace Corps monthly stipend. That was my initial investment, and I was able to, because I lived on the ground, did my homework, knew the communities, knew where to get my resources, knew how to liaise, that I was able, the barriers to entry were low as long as I had the understanding on how to do it while respecting the culture, respecting the people, understanding what they want and what they need, rather than coming in and dictating with a very rigid business mind and saying, this is what I want to do. So I'm interested in seeing more decentralized networks of producers pop up all over Lesotho to start, and see where things go. Let's see, also in my notes was that I wanted to really highlight that I have no formal business training. My background, as Dr. Maddox was saying, my master's degree is in conflict resolution from the University of Amsterdam, and that's what I built my framework around. I was not interested in making profit when we first started this business. My purpose was to develop a business model that was able to do a few things. Give idle hands something to do that earned them revenue. But also, I realized that HIV and AIDS in Lesotho, impacting over 23% of the community of the country, is deadly because of its because of the effect of abject poverty. And I thought that if you can remove that to a degree, remove the poverty from the situation, then people can live longer and more full lives. And so my goal was put some money in people's pockets and give them a creative activity to do. And by doing that, you saw communities starting to come together in new ways, saw new linkages form, new social bonds within the village that we first started producing. And I accredit that to my background in conflict resolution, making those principles the bedrock of my business rather than bottom line profit first. So yeah, and then just to move along to today, you know, the pandemic, of course, has changed everything. We started producing face masks. Another interesting thing about that was we have our teams producing there. I also have communities, a few folks here in New Orleans working because my primary goal is employment in Lesotho. But we were able to start a lot of partnerships with different organizations, and like some were in Houston as well. I worked with Ochsner Health here, a network of health facilities, as well as Houston Methodist in Houston, and they were supplying us with polypropylene, a medical grade material that gives our masks a 95% filtration rate and makes them waterproof, moisture wicking, all the good things that the CDC says that your products need. And I realized through this production that there's so much opportunity to utilize decentralized networks of production across the continent of Africa in crisis intervention, particularly in production of PPE in response to COVID-19. But, you know, there's always some sort of virus or something going on in the world in different regions. And that agile structure of our business, I believe, I would like to see that exported to other people's businesses, so that, you know, when something like this happens again and totally decimates the entire ability for a business to operate direct to consumer, they can switch. They can pivot to a product that's not only going to be profitable, but going to do some social good. And that's pretty much all that I've got. Looks like there's some questions. The first question was, I'm not sure if these questions are for me.
We'll take the questions at the end of all the speakers, and we'll give everybody a chance to respond after they present, okay?
Great. Yeah. Well, thank you, Dr. Maddox. Thank you for everybody listening. Have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Edward. It's an inspiring and enlightening story, and hopefully one that can lead to continued engagement and continued community development in Lesotho and across Africa. Our next speaker is Ms. Shannette Prince. She is the founder of the Houston-based Africa on My Back. Africa on My Back is a socially conscious fashion accessories brand that sends unique African print backpacks and other accessories that are handmade by artisans in Ghana. And if those of you who know the traditional textile industry in Ghana is world famous for kente cloth and other types of textiles produced there. The company was brought to life after she visited Ghana in 2016 with her teenage son. The company's social impact mission is to provide study abroad opportunities for brilliant Black boys, an initiative that seeks to empower African American young men through international cultural study abroad opportunities. Ms. Prince, welcome to Texas Southern.
Introduction. Welcome back to Texas Southern. I'm a proud alum of Texas Southern University, Go Tigers. And I'm Shannette Prince, the owner of Africa on My Back. And like you said in the introduction, I went to Ghana on a life-changing trip in 2016 and fell in love with the people, the culture, the food, just everything about the country. And when I got there, I met a guy who had repatriated to the continent. And he said there are opportunities, the business opportunities in Ghana on the continent are rich. And I said, well, I'm working in fundraising in Houston, didn't have any plans on becoming a business owner. I said, I'm here to enjoy myself. And so I did that. And when I got back to Houston, when I got back to the States, I brought a backpack with me. And I got so many compliments on my backpack, and so many people wanted to know where I'd gotten it from. And I said, oh, okay, this is, I got it while I was in Ghana, didn't think anything of it. But shortly thereafter, I took my son, who at the time was 14, and I saw my son come alive. And this is at a time when there was some civil unrest. There was a lot of police killing of unarmed Black men. And at that time, I had started to call my two sons brilliant Black boys. I said, the media is portraying you as something other than brilliant. The narrative around Black boys is something other than nice. And so I said that I wanted to call them brilliant Black boys because if I call you that, that's who you will be. And so I took my son to Ghana. I saw him come alive. I saw him he was empowered, he was free, and I wanted to make sure that other Black boys had a similar opportunity. And while they're on the second trip, I said, well, everyone has been asking about the backpacks. I work for an education nonprofit, and I know that every year there are backpack drives, there are school supply drives. This is something that we could potentially, turn into a business, and that's what I did. I got the name Africa on My Back because I believe that we should always be thinking about Africa. The backpack is just a symbol of the rich history and the heritage and tradition. And as African-American people, that's something that we should always be thinking about. So we're carrying it on our back and we are carrying it in our heart, which is why we're here today to talk about business opportunities. We have seen tremendous growth within the past 3.5 years. We started online and so happy that we started online because when COVID hit, there was not a whole lot of pivoting that we needed to do. We just continue to wrap up our online presence. We use social media to get the word out. We have heavy marketing campaigns that we do monthly. And I'm happy to report that just recently, in March, right before the country shut down, we had fulfilled one of our missions of taking boys to Ghana. So we had a group of 14 parents and students that we took to Ghana, and when we got there, we found out that there was a travel ban. So we spent 2 weeks on the ground doing tours and being enriched in the country before we got back to the States. COVID has, ironically for our business, helped us grow. We saw some of our highest grossing months in April, right after the lockdowns went down. We did, similar to what Edward did, we started producing face masks. Our primary product are the backpacks, and, school had shut down and people weren't really traveling. But we were able to work with our artisans to start producing face masks. And one of the ways that we were able to find our artisans, I had been there, twice. I had a friend who was living there, and he was also doing business with textiles. And so it was it was a seamless transition for me. It wasn't a huge heavy lift. I was able to trust the people that he worked with. And so I built relationships of my own with them. And they introduced me to other artisans that would be able to assist us. As the business has grown, I've had to find the task now is finding manufacturing. So are there large manufacturing companies in Ghana that are able to mass produce the backpacks, which is the next goal, is to do mass production. And we have been successful in finding one, and now we're just working out the specs, product design, cost analysis, and things like that. I would say that the opportunity to do business, on the continent for us, it's been phenomenal. Not a lot of, I would say not a lot of challenges as far as it hasn't been anything that I don't think I would have had to deal with if I were working in China or somewhere else. Shipping from Ghana, I've learned a lot there. We recently had Delta to lose some of our packages. And it wasn't anything that, it was a manufacturing thing. It was the packages, Delta just lost them in their airport. They found them, and then, we were able to get back on track. But I would say to anyone who's interested in doing business on the continent that the opportunity is there. The people are eager. The people are trainable, and they are open to doing business. And one of the reasons that I saw the parallels between the artisans and Black boys, and I tell this story, I think that the artisans in Ghana need opportunity and access, just like Black boys here in America, right? There's this narrative that, the country or the continent is poor and, the resources aren't there. In actuality, the continent has everything that it needs. The continent needs opportunity and access. So my artisans, we provide opportunity and access for them to continue to do what they were already doing. They were already producing backpacks and messenger bags and some of our products. We have allowed them to expand and grow their businesses. We have worked with them on business development. We've worked with them on product development. And we are comfortable introducing them to other people who want to get into the textile business. So the opportunity and access that we provided for them is the same thing that we want to do with the brilliant Black boys. We want to make sure that the boys here in the States have opportunity and access to travel abroad, to see where their ancestors are from, to, for many of them get on the plane for the first time, to go through the application process for a passport, things that traditionally they just have not been able to do. And so that's what we seek. We seek to make sure that on both sides there's opportunity and access. And we do that by making sure that as many people know about Africa on My Back. Our audience is not just here in the States because we are online. We've done business with Germany and Japan. Just really all over the world, people are purchasing our products. So, yeah, I can more than happy to entertain any questions that anyone has. But I would tell people, if you want to do business in Africa, the sky is the limit. There's so many things that you can do, and so many people are receptive to you doing them. Dr. Maddox, back to you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Prince. Thank you very much. We do have questions. We'll take them after we hear from all of our speakers. Our next speaker is Professor Emeka Darigbo. He is a professor of law here at the Thurgood Marshall School of Law at Texas Southern. He is a specialist in international law, and he has extensive involvement in international legal transactions. What he's going to talk a little bit about is the legal implications of doing business with Africa. Professor Darigbo.
Thank you very much, Professor Maddox. I don't know to what extent you guys can see me, but what I want to do is share my screen. If that doesn't work, I will just speak. I have I think I wanted to share some PowerPoint slides. Okay. So I'll start talking if we get there, fine. But my presentation today is on the legal aspects, like Dr. Maddox said. Dean Blesso, whom I thank for inviting me to speak on this, told me that my assignment was simple. Talk about the international legal aspects of doing business in Africa, and then share my own experience. I assume everybody's seen the screen. Okay, so what I want to do is talk about international law, the work of an international lawyer, and then talk about my experience as explained to me. So the idea is to encourage people to understand the legal underpinnings of business and also interest in working as an international lawyer. International law, the simple way to understand it is to see it as divided into two, public international law and private international law. So public international law deals with, nations, countries, states, things like, issues of war and peace, who is sending troops to Afghanistan or Sudan, who is withdrawing troops, who is receiving ambassadors and diplomats, who's conducting trade deals like NAFTA or the new agreement that replaced it, and things like that. They are in the domain of public international law. Private international law deals more with how, so this public international law, how individuals are affected by cross-national issues. So it could be even as simple as marriage. Somebody gets married in one country and lives in another country and then wants to divorce, maybe in a third country or the same second country, or, involving nationals of different countries. What law should we apply? Where should the divorce proceedings be held and all that? So same thing also, it deals with business transactions, how people do business in across borders. Like Dr. Tenede was talking initially about pipelines, for instance, from a landlocked country to the sea. Invariably, that would mean interacting with maybe one or two more countries, or even the pipeline intersecting different nations. What law would apply? And so things like that. You're manufacturing products in China and selling them in the United States, or you're manufacturing them in Ghana and transporting them. What law would apply? How do we, if there's a conflict, if there's a dispute between the suppliers and the consumers and the manufacturers and all that? So international law comes into play in that regard as well. We call that private international law. However, sometimes we get fooled by the idea of the distinction between public and private. Sometimes they both intersect. For instance, human rights. We deal with human rights. This is a public international law issue. States come in there, humanitarian law, human rights, who is maltreating their citizens and all that. But it also involves individuals, right? Individuals abusing human rights or being victims of human rights abuse. Corporations involved in human rights issues, torture, slavery, and all those. So there is a fusion sometimes between public and private. So I say why the distinction is quite convenient. The line is not always neatly drawn. All right. Now, having introduced us briefly to what international law is, how we need to say that international law is important in today's world. It's not always fashionable to talk about international law because people are like, oh, it's all about power, But for us to function very well on Earth here, we need a system, that prevents us from resorting to mass violence, find a way to peacefully resolve our disputes, find a peaceful atmosphere where people can conduct business, people can travel from country A to country B and know that they are protected by the law. They can buy and sell, they can exchange goods and services. And so all those things, international law provides the foundation for us to do all of that. So even lawyers that are not international lawyers still find that they interact with international law all the time, whether it's with immigration law, whether it's with family law, criminal law. A number of the rules we see in these areas are developed at the international level and then applied at the domestic level. And so it's relevant to all lawyers. So even lawyers that say, oh, I don't want to be an international lawyer. Today we deal with multi-jurisdictional issues. There are something that's happening. Maybe somebody's in Mexico and is dealing with somebody in the United States. Before you know it, we're dealing with consular relations. A Mexican citizen is arrested in Texas. International law becomes an issue right there. So you can't just say, oh, I'm just a domestic lawyer dealing with criminal law. Let me go to the local courts and deal with it. At that point, it becomes an international law issue. But in terms of building a career in international law, money becomes the issue, right? If we want to encourage anybody to take a career, we want to think, is there money there? So I was very happy with all the presentations before me. They talked about the money part. There is money in doing business abroad and especially in doing business in Africa. So if there is money, then the lawyers involved would also get a chunk of that. So what are the careers out there for international lawyers? One of them is to be an attorney in a private law firm. Again, Dr. Tenede said about countries do not give you absolute sovereign guarantees these days. In fact, that's part of what I teach, that you have to do your due diligence. You have to find different tools for protecting yourself. And as an attorney in private law firms, that's part of your work. You do this due diligence, you go to these countries, you find out what is the legal system like. How do you protect yourself if your client or protect your client's interests if the system there is not favorable? Sometimes you want to do international arbitration, you want your disputes resolved outside of the host country, maybe in London, maybe in Paris, maybe in New York, things like that. So it requires lawyers to do that, and usually in private firms drafting different documents, contracts. You also have lawyers working in major business corporations, oil companies, the Walmarts of this world, defense contractors and others. Your job is to make sure that the different laws applicable are applied. International lawyers also work as judges of international courts and tribunals, whether the International Court of Justice or the International Criminal Court, the various tribunals are there. They also work as prosecutors, defense counsel, and staff of these courts. They also work in international organizations such as the UN, the World Bank, the EU Commission, the African Union, different places that people work. Also with international development agencies that I mentioned, and other ones. Then they work also with the government, like the State Department, USAID. Again, you find that sometimes you need a way to protect your investment. And one of the things that happens is what is called political risk insurance. You do business in certain countries, and the legal system there cannot really support you. The government can come in and take your investment, and you put in $200 million. Well, sometimes the government and the World Bank and certain government like the US and other places, they have a system of political risk insurance. So not commercial insurance that you can buy in the market, but where the government comes in to say, we will protect you if you go into XYZ place to do business and confiscate or nationalize your assets. The government will compensate you and fight for you and all that. So all those things help facilitate business, especially in countries where democracy is not deepened, the rule of law is not as respected as it is here. International lawyers also work as staff of non-governmental organizations. So some of these big NGOs like Human Rights Watch, Greenpeace, Friends of the Earth, they have lawyers. And then you can be a consultant to these bodies, consultant to the UN, consultant to law firms. And those are a few of the areas that you can work as an international lawyer. How do you train to be one? Well, you go to law school. While in law school, it's advised that you take courses that are relevant to international law, like the ones I listed, especially international business transactions, international trade law, international investment law. Those are courses that can help you become an international lawyer. And then you could also do a master's program in international law. A number of schools offer them. And then the most important is the practical training. You get a job or you get an internship in a firm like the ones I listed earlier, where you get trained on this. Personally, I've been involved in a number of international law projects. I spent some years doing the Corporate Accountability Project in Africa, where we went to, in Nigeria specifically, to try to negotiate and work on how to improve oil revenue management. I've been involved in energy law reform. Today, I was looking at an email I got from U.S. Department of Commerce, where they invited me to help with dealing with foreign investment issue in Tanzania specifically, when Tanzania came up with the Natural Gas Act. So in 2015, the Commerce Department contacted me, and they have a handful of experts in the U.S. that they work with, and they asked me to do the work in collaboration with the State Department. And by the way, when I was doing the Corporate Accountability Project, we were also working with the State Department. I was there like with a colleague about twice to meet with the officials. So they asked me to, looking at my email today, they asked me specifically, what is the potential negative impact of the Tanzania Natural Gas Act on international oil corporations that have invested or are considering investing upstream, downstream, midstream in that country. So something like pipelines, something like refineries, something like oil and gas production in that country. So I was able to advise them. I also serve on the advisory board of some of the international energy organizations, like the Association of International Petroleum Negotiators and the Institute for Energy Law. Of course, I speak on these issues and I publish. So this is part of the project I did. This is part of the presentation I made before the World Affairs Council in San Francisco, talking about the project in Nigeria. This project was to create a model to promote human rights and equitable control of oil funds by the local communities. So that involved me going to the communities. In this picture, we go there, talk to the people, take a lot of risk, but our goal was to make sure that things work well. So this is one of the communities, Obogu, met with the people. So talked to some of the leaders. This is another community, Obogoro. So we met with women leaders. We tried to see how the laws and the institutions can be tailored to protect the people, so that the money comes in, the people can do businesses. I want to end by talking about diversity and inclusion. I'm also involved in those efforts. What is going on now, there's a greater push for diversity and inclusion in the marketplace. Both the governments and clients are insisting that vendors and service providers reflect the American society. So maybe you want a contract with Shell, or even a law firm wants to do work for Shell, and they will say, show us the team that is working for us. Do you have African Americans represented? Do you have women? Do you have other minorities? Or are you just the same old clique? So they're asking for this, and so firms are responding. They want to recruit people to, obviously, to meet this demand. So there is a lot of room. But apart from that, we need voices from different places to speak on issues. For instance, one of the major things that the current government administration is looking at is climate change. And climate change has a disproportionate impact on on minority communities, siting of chemical plants, siting of oil and gas facilities and all that. You need voices from these communities to speak on these issues. So a career international law fits into all of these. And if everything I said has not convinced you, working overseas pays more. You have all these hazard allowances. You have, I have a student right now working in Dubai. They pay him a lot of money to take care of his family, like, I think up to $75,000 annually for kids in kindergarten to pay their fees and all that. So he ends up not spending money. He's been able to retire a lot of his student debts because he's getting all this extra pay for working abroad. So a lot of opportunities there. So that's pretty much it on that. I'm happy to take questions on the presentation. And thank you again for the opportunity, and thank you for the introduction.
Thank you, Professor Derigbo. We have plenty of time now for questions. We have several that have come up through the chat. I'll try to get them in the order that they've been asked, and I'm going to ask the speakers if they could be ready to answer where their experiences and expertise fit in best. The first question was from Summer, who asked, what are some examples of projects that would be smart for the beginner to invest in? And I know Dr. Tenede wrote an answer to that one, but let me see if I can ask him if he'd try and relay to the rest of the group some of what he said.
Yes. The kind of industries essentially they range from very small. Somebody mentioned about supplying beauty products and doing some salon services. That is one. The requirement, first of all, the demand is there. Anything to do with beauty and things like that is usually in high demand, especially in Africa. What you need to go through there, as we stated earlier, you have to do some due diligence. The capital requirement is not much, but we really have to know the place. You have to know how you're going to build a name recognition, how you're going to build your customers, and who is going to be working for you. All those are logistical issues that you need to handle carefully upfront so that you minimize early frustrations. However, how you do the due diligence, if you really want to set up a business like that, you have to go there, get a feel of it, know what is the state of that kind of business you want to do. Even go in there and you might find there is a niche that is not present and there is someone you can work with who is already in the business. You measure that against what you want. Probably you are ready to go. But logistics is always an issue. Another example that I mentioned on the agriculture side, for example, food processing is always key, both for internal consumption and for export. For internal consumption, agriculture products in most African countries, for sure in East Africa, 40% are wasted because of they waste out because they get damaged, they are poorly kept, they rot, the logistics of shipping them to the market is poor, all those kind of things. So anything in between there, you can do a business and to have a high impact. And if you want to do for export, for example, I'll pick an example that is fit for what I see here in America. Spices. Lots of spices out there, non-GMO, However, when they come here, they have to meet certain qualities. You have to pre-process them there, and typically you process them enough and assign them in various quality categories and ship them in bulk. If you want to make money, you have to ship them in bulk so that the destination is not one HEB or whatever. You release it to the distributors here, who will now then finish the production based on what market they're producing for, such as the packaging for HEB may not be the same as the packaging for Walmart, and etc. And you don't want to do those things. You can't. Other examples I mentioned include these medium-level type of manufacturing industries. Housing, as an example, is a heavy need in most African countries. Most of the houses are very substandard, but there are some people that can afford some level of higher standard if profitable or viable materials components can be produced there. Roofing material, and you don't have to go to the high end, the very basic ones, and probably you're only producing 2 or 3 types. You make the required money. The due diligence required for that is easy. The associated ministries for housing will give you all the demand information, the current prices, and all those type of things. So what you can invest in, we can discuss offline. A lot of areas that we can talk about, and even how to develop the initial write-up to begin selling the ideas to either your friends or somebody who can chime in with money.
Yeah, if I may add quickly, just to expand a little on what Dr. Tenede said about, mid-level manufacturing. Yeah, because a lot of people obviously don't have the billions and millions to put in, but even with tens of thousands of dollars or even less, you may be able to start something. What I've been seeing in the past few months during the pandemic is that a number of my clients in Nigeria, they have they've been able to be collaborating with Chinese manufacturers, for instance, to do textiles for fashion things like shoes, leather. They do part of it in China. Then they have some equipment brought in Africa and do it there in Nigeria. And these people it's amazing to me how much money they are turning over. But another area I saw things like even simple things like toothpaste. You may be surprised that somebody comes in super glue. Amazing to me. I thought that we had all those things there. They send me pictures, toothpaste, super glue, things they are doing there. And who are doing it? Especially Chinese business people. And they come in and these people are making millions of dollars from this. Because I know some of the money that are turning over, they're importing and exporting and all that. So if somebody takes like $50,000 and goes in there, there are people on ground that can even work with you on that. And the market is vast. These are things people need. The government doesn't want them imported anymore. So anybody that wants to import them is through some backyard way, but people are setting up facilities manufacturing these things. And let me talk quickly about the shipping. The logistics, I think, has improved. Right here in Houston is a major place for shipping stuff. Especially if you're here in Houston, you want to ship things in Africa, there are logistic companies that are already here doing that to Nigeria. I remember on a personal note, when I was being courted by another school out there, my wife was like, I don't want to move because from Houston I can ship my things. Sometimes she ships all these clothes to people in Africa and all that. So my point is that the logistics here really look good in terms of bringing in things and bringing them back. And there are companies already doing that.
Thank you. So next question. They wants to know how any of you have utilized the consulates and honorary consulates in Houston or Edward in New Orleans to aid your efforts. Were they effective in assisting you?
So I use the consulate, of course, when we have to get our visas. And so when we took the big group out there, they were helpful for that. Ironically, when we were there in March and the countries were starting to close down, some of the flights were being canceled from Ghana coming back to the States. And I, emailed the folks that I knew here at the consulate, and they weren't very helpful, unfortunately. And even while we were there in Ghana, we went to the U.S. Embassy, and we were able to speak to a couple of folks, but COVID was new, the pandemic was happening, and everything was unfolding right then and there. But it wasn't. Just maybe I'm just a little naive, but I thought that in a pandemic we'd be able to go, to the embassy. We are U.S. citizens. Our flights are being canceled. How can we get back to the States? But they were experiencing the same thing, and so their flights were being canceled. At the embassy. So wasn't a whole lot of help, but we do have contacts at the consulate here in Houston, the embassy there in Ghana, and we do our best to stay in contact.
Okay, thank you. Tamisha asks, where would you advise our research begin with the legalities of the area in which we want to build? Or alternatively, should you start from the industry first, know what you want to do, and then look at the legal issues involved? Dr. Tenede, you have to unmute.
Okay, sorry about that. I would say that, first of all, you should know what you want to do. Do your homework first. Get comfortable about even why you want to do it. Is it your passion? Is it your area of skill sets? Something like that. Because if you just want to do something because it is in demand somewhere, it might not be very pleasing to you if it is far off from your areas of interest. The industries that you're going to want to do have got representation here, and they exist here, and some of them may have gone out. Here in America, with regard to Africa, not so many entities have even thought about going into Africa. So you are at a disadvantage here. But the Department of Commerce, the embassies, even international organizations, they can give you some initial information. And if it is a somewhat an industry that appears to attract this government of the United States from the point of view of, you're going to be using American services, American technology and such things, and therefore the value of it is not just you, but even broader. You can even get help from organizations such as USTDA or USAID. And the value of these institutions is they've got a lot of history and experience and money. If they think the value of it is beyond you, they can even assist in the initial studies if you make a good case to them. And that's their value, is to push America influence from a services standpoint, from a technology standpoint, so that more value comes back to the country while you're helping the other end. So those would be the places to start. And then next, if time permitting, engage somebody to write an initial write-up, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages max. There are a lot of such entities here in America. They will write for America, but that is still a good starting point. And then you you customize it for the specifics that you know about the destination country. And for that, you have embassies also to help you. And if you visit the place with friends, then you'll go and get some information in country and finish off the write-ups.
Again, if I may add quickly to the excellent points made. Also, there are chambers of commerce, especially in Africa. I've had to interact with some of them. Like there was some group that came from Cameroon a few years ago and tried to. It was like American Cameroon Chamber of Commerce, something like that. And they came in. They had people from America from Cameroon. I think there's a lady who's American but lives in Cameroon that was coordinating that. So some of those places, like in Nigeria, they have different chambers of commerce like that that can connect you to the particular area of business you're interested in and work with that. In terms of the law, yeah, I think it's good to know what you want, but also, work with a lawyer that does international work, that can look at the specific country you're looking at and the specific issues that you need to look at. The good thing is that these days, many of these things have been liberalized. Many of these countries allow foreign investment. They fight for it. They hustle for it, so to say. So, and then the U.S. government, I think the African Growth and Opportunities Act helped also to take care of tariffs and some of these bottlenecks. So I don't think it will cost a lot of money to engage a lawyer to just do the basic framework and say this is what you need to go in. But definitely the governments are willing to attract and emphasize for the small business person, that is really, really helpful. The issue you deal with are more like infrastructure. How are you going to deal with electricity in that place? You have to have your own generating plant. How do you pay for telephone? It's more expensive and all that. But the legalities, they are not as burdensome. It's more of an infrastructure thing, which goes into the cost of doing business.
Thank you. Next question. And I know a couple of you have responded in the chat, and I think there's some good points that we should all be aware of. Could the speakers talk a bit about the logistics of doing business between Africa and the U.S. and the thinking about shipping, tariffs? Obviously, this will be unique to each country, but just a general idea. And I know Edward had some very interesting things to say in the response. You got to unmute, Edward.
Go ahead, Edward.
All right.
You're unmuted.
Yeah. I've been using DHL for since 2015, and it's now the only shipper I use. But the only reason why that really works for me is because I have such small products that I work with, and all of my shipments, each shipment is under 50 pounds. It is expensive. However, you get great insurance, and I've on average gotten my packages delivered between 4 and 6 days, from Lesotho to Louisiana to Texas to California and to New York. So it's effective, it's fast. There are plenty of other great shipping options, and I've also within Lesotho in South Africa used just the local post, and it's effective. I haven't sent those internationally. However, if you go do a little bit of research on the country that you're looking to ship from, there are always many shipping and logistics providers available to you.
Yeah, I can speak to that also. Like Edward, we did DHL when we initially we did Ghana Post, which is, equivalent to USPS there. And that worked well. There are some shipping delays. The other thing was just tracking. So the systems are different. Whereas if you use a DHL, which is more international, or if you're using FedEx, you have the tracking information. It normally gets to you 3 to 4 or 5 days at max. Our shipments are humongous. And we use air cargo now. So we're using, Delta Airlines, KLM, and hopefully this year, as shipments continue to grow, we hope to use shipping, which is more cost effective from what I've been told, but it does take, 30 days because it's coming by sea. So we've used a plethora of the shipping partners. I will say that with air cargo, because the flights come in almost daily, I know, exactly when my packages are when they're going to come into Houston. And I've been advised, through my broker that perhaps getting an international carrier when you're shipping from the continent would be better. Like I said, Delta, for 20 days they couldn't find. I had a shipment with 7 huge boxes, and they, misplaced them. So, you just have to, it's trial and error. I would say, DHL, if you're starting out small, the packages are, smaller. And then as you grow, start to look into air cargo, freight, which is going to be the ship by sea. You just have to be able to time your manufacturing and production when you actually need the product and how long, it's going to take for it to get here.
Thank you. We have a very interesting question. What would the first steps be if I want to train women in construction? I'd like to open a training academy that teaches the building trades to women and girls. What are some of the housekeeping tips to begin?
Can I go first here? Actually, that question has been asked and addressed before. I know a company here owned by a lady who was requested by an oil company to help establish a training program in Nigeria, I think in the Delta state, or if there is a state like that.
There is.
Yeah, and the request was twofold. First of all, to make it attractive for the ladies to go get the training. How do you make it attractive? Remove the stigma of this is not a female job, and make it friendly to them so that they feel safe, because they know they're going to be working in an environment which is predominantly male. And the kind of training that was needed was not engineer or technician, but some basic skills, even like welding. Certain types of welding require a very steady hand. And if you are welding pipelines for oil transmission, you really need it to be leak-proof. And those types of training were conducted, but they were stopped after 2 years because of the safety in the region. For whoever asked, I can point her or him to this company. It still exists, and I'm in touch with them to get some information.
Yeah, I would say that capacity building is essential in Africa, especially Nigeria, where I come from. Training is needed in different areas, and the cost is effective. I think that there should be more collaboration in that area. Just the example of your company, I think there should be more of such things. There are many people that want to work in Africa, but they don't have the opportunity to work, and that's because everybody's depending on government or the big companies. But if they get some basic training on basic things to do, they will be able to function on their own, and if the government can also be educated in those places to allow for some of these things to work, I know, I talk to some of these people, they have even sometimes budgets for training, but they end up being wasted here and there. But if anybody here is interested in, capacity building, training people to do certain things, basic, levels of work, that is not even high skills. There are people that have graduated from schools, colleges, and are willing to retrain and start doing things for themselves. And that's one of the things that will help the economy grow there. And we're seeing a bit of that, but I think with people coming from here to help in setting up such structures, I think that would be great.
Thank you. We have two more questions, time for two more questions. One from Ms. White is, what's the average cost to start a business, say, producing hair, weave, and other items for a beauty supply store? I know Dr. Tenede had some thoughts on this one.
Okay. This is similar to what we've discussed a little earlier. That is the kind of business that I would say from a capital requirement is low, but the biggest homework there is to know and understand and build a customer base, and also to build a name recognition and branding for your specific task. These beauty-related stuff, anyone can correct me. Once you build a name, whatever you do carries, because you have produced what significant people have used and have looked good. So that's how you build the branding for it. But most importantly, also, you got to get some familiarity with the local customs in a way. The same thing that is very good in Lagos may not be very good in Dar es Salaam, or sometimes vice versa. If it is good in Lagos, Dar es Salaam will like it. So those are the things. It's much more your homework than capital, the way I'm seeing it. But as I said earlier, if you want to set up, let's say in Angola, do visit Angola, stay there even 3-4 weeks, and to familiarize yourself and get comfortable that, I can stay here longer and do business.
Dr. Maddox, let me add, I'm Judge Littlejohn. I do business in Nigeria and Liberia. I've been doing hair since 2012. So later on this afternoon, I'll be able to address some of that also. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Go ahead.
I'm done, Dr. Maddox. Yeah.
Okay. So we get a plug for our next panel, which starts at 12, with Judge Littlejohn, who will be joining us with a number of other distinguished speakers. Let me go to our last, what I think is going to be our last question. Are there any suggestions for, say, a lower level approach to addressing food insecurity?
Again, if I may add, obviously, I wouldn't say it's my field, but from my experience, I'm constantly in touch with Nigeria, got back recently from there. And food insecurity is a major issue, and that's part of what Dr. Tenede said, the processing part. People produce, but they're not able to process it. Simple things like refrigeration that we take for granted here, that in your house you turn on the refrigerator and the freezer and they function, and it's a challenge. Even when I went home and we had like basic family parties and all that, meat was rotting away. We're throwing them away because somebody will not see that they need to put it in the freezer, and then they put it, there's no light, electricity is gone. So I think a way to address food insecurity would be, one, we find a way to process them, invest in processing. But another way also would be like, even the people that are farming, they are not really well compensated. Anybody that invests in that area also, you get in there, you will be surprised that you will get the manpower you need. And I was just thinking as we are talking, there are a number of university graduates that are happy to earn $100 a month. Extremely happy. $200, that is a jackpot for many people in Nigeria. And they will get the job and they will work in different areas of investment or industry. And that cuts across even the hair, the weave and all that, but also the food area. Somebody comes in there and says, okay, we want to invest in this part of, canning tomatoes, fruit juice and all that, little things, and start from there. The market is there for sure. Obviously, not everybody has the earning power, but there are some people that have the capacity to even pay, but to just get it going. So, in a nutshell, I think we need to invest more on preservation, the ones that have been produced, but also expand production. A lot of people in Africa are used to this idea of white-collar jobs, so people don't see farming or agric as something that people should go into. But when they see people come in, especially from here, and say, okay, we want to set up this farm, and we want to pay the farmer well, and people, farm hands well, you see people getting more interested, and there will be more food available.
Okay, I think that's all the time we have. We have a couple of more questions that popped up. One about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area that launched on January 1st, and another about guidance to organizations that might connect someone who's interested in these issues here in Houston or in the United States. I'm sure that we'll be able to address those either in the chat or in our next panel, which will begin in 15 minutes at 12 p.m., and it'll be introduced by my colleague. And I will also note alumni of the same institution. We were graduate students together at Northwestern University, Dean George Kia. So thank you so much to our participants. We appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. We hope you'll stick around for our second panel. We hope all the attendees will stick around and hang on 15 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
My
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello?
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 Who's
I
there?
don't know what.
Hello?
Hi, this is Ron Kirk. It keeps telling me you can't see my video, but I don't know where to change that.
Okay, look in the top right hand
I think I just
corner.
got
Okay, you see it?
Yeah, do you see me
Okay,
now?
good. I
Thank you.
don't.
Good.
Now I do. Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. We're on a brief break before the session 2 starts.
Cool. Now, will you want us to stay unmuted or mute, or will you mute us on and off depending on when we speak?
Yes, we will unmute you. You can, when your time comes up, if you could unmute yourself, but
Okay.
we will mute you, in the meantime.
Once we
Yes, sir.
start. Okay, good.
Okay. Mhm.
To stay unmuted or mute, or will you mute us on and off depending on when we? Now, I'm getting feedback. Is that good? I hope.
Yes. No, do you have, check your speaker perhaps? No, but we will mute you in the meantime. Yeah, I'm getting feedback too. Dr. Rodriguez, could you take a look and see where the extra feedback is coming from, sir? Okay.
I'm back, Cynthia. Hold on, I'll take a look.
Yeah, I'm looking. If somebody has a telephone that they may have called in and their phone is still on. Let me. Yes, I see. I can find. I see it.
Hold on, I'll take a look.
No, I know. Yeah, I'm looking. No, I found it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the moderators. While we're on this break, we're going to mute your mics and your cameras, and we'll bring you back on right at the beginning when the break is over.
going on? Hello?
Don Kirk?
Yes.
Ron Kirk? Yeah, we won't begin until 12 o'clock. It's just a slideshow playing, okay? And I'll
Okay.
bring you in at the right time. So I'm seeing you, okay?
Long as I'm here, I see Mr.
Yeah, you're fine. And you can leave your, and you can leave your mic and stuff on.
All right, I won't do a thing. Okay, thank you.
But I'll take care of it from my side, so don't you worry.
Hey, Ron, it's Gary. How you doing?
Hey,
man?
my brother, how are you?
Oh, trying to behave and follow your lead there. No guarantees. Thank you for doing that. I was really intrigued by that first panel. It was really informative. So, yeah.
Well, unfortunately, I've been on Zoom calls all morning, so I just
you got to bill hours and stuff like that. We understand that. But they had a couple of really good questions at the end that I don't know if Dean Maddox is still here, but they were right in probably things that you would be familiar with that they answered the last panel they didn't get to.
Well, I will follow the others' lead. So. But anyway, good to see you, man. You're well. You're healthy.
Yeah. You, family, okay?
Are you in Houston or Austin? Are you back and forth?
Back and forth.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're still recording and we're still live.
Okay.
Just FYI. And Dr. Rodriguez, if you can stop sharing your screen. Ladies and gentlemen, we're still recording and we're still live. Just FYI. If you can stop sharing your screen.
I guess we're set.
Okay, my audio is on. We're about to start the second session. The second session is moderated by our own Dean of School Public Affairs, Barbara Johnmickey School Public Affairs, Dr. George Kia. We have several other panelists, and we just make sure everybody's ready to go. And I'll call out the name of the panelists for this panel is including. We have our moderator, Dean George Kia. We also have Dr. Denise Ajay, Mr. Bill Littlejohn, Mr. Val Thompson, Ambassador Ronald Kirk. So those are the members who are in this particular panel. Everyone else who might be on, I'm going to make sure we will take off your mics and your cameras. And the way we'll do it is once the Dean speaks, I will be present on the camera, on the screen. So you just need, and you can leave your microphones on or off, but I'll take care of it from my side. Okay, so on that, if I can say, Dr. George Key is the Dean of the School of Public Affairs. He's been at the school since about August the 6th of 2019. He has a vast amount of experience in public policy, public process. He also has a tremendous amount of African experience, having been the from Liberia, and is one first dean we've had in the School of Public Affairs who was actually born on the continent, which is something I'm very proud to say. I also work for him as an academic president or whatever things that he may need to get done. So on that, Dean Kia, I'm going to go to you, and you will have the entire screen to begin the second session.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rodriguez. Good afternoon, everybody. Let me begin by first expressing my own thanks and appreciation to the Office of the Provost and my colleagues on the TSU Conversation Series Committee for putting this roundtable together, and to thank the panelists who graciously agreed and accepted our invitation to participate. I would like to thank my colleague, Dean Maddox, and the first panel, because I believe that they sort of laid a foundation for what we're going to do in the second panel. So without any further ado, what I'm going to do is briefly introduce